Hello everyone, today I'm taking lead on Murray Sidman regarding Chapter 11 on coercion and its fallout from Module 6. This chapter was very interesting regarding Sidman's thought process concerning coercion in terms to how one reacts in a variety of situations. While coercion has effects in terms of individuals avoiding or escaping situations, as Sidman says, there are always consequences to our choices. On page 167, he states, even successful avoidance may entail personal and social costs so severe that a person is classified as mentally ill. Think about this statement for a second and provide your own thought process of this statement. When I read this statement, I view it as even if an individual attempts to avoid coercion, at the end of the day, there will be a negative result. But I am a bit confused on his statement concerning being classified as mental illness. Is he saying being coerced, you're sick in the mind? What is it? From my point of view, I'm not sure mental illness has anything to do with coercion and how one reacts. But if someone could provide me with a possible explanation, that would be greatly appreciated. Throughout the video, I will of course state the concepts that stood out to me as I did before when I'm referring and explaining things, along with their pages, so you may follow along with me if you need to look back at your book to have a better insight to my understandings. With this chapter, Sidman spoke more so about the results of avoidance and the reasonings behind them while coercion takes place. Avoidance can be due to being coerced, and it is human nature for individuals to either comply or escape the situation. There are circumstances to where individuals are coerced in order to receive the truth in a situation, but these situations, the truth is captured in harsh circumstances. Individuals can either be threatened or punished harshly, repeatedly, with forces the individual the inability to think straight. It comes to a point to where they will say anything in order to terminate the threats or punishments being put upon them. For example, if an individual is being tortured for the truth, do you think they are going to withstand the cruelty for long? The answer should be no, because it will get to the point to where they want the pain to end, and in their mind, if they say what is wanted to be heard, they will be free from harm. On page 167, for its dependence on control by coercion, society pays a price in human suffering, maladjustment, and reduced capacity for constructive engagement. When I read this, I believe it goes with my statement provided previously of individuals will say or do anything in order to be relieved of suffering. Now, what is your standpoint with the statement I just read from Sidman? The first concept I will discuss on page 167 is defense mechanism against coercion. And with this, I was a bit confused, but I will do my best to interpret this. Again, if there is someone who has better understanding, it would be greatly appreciated to provide your input. This concept discusses how mental illness can be due to avoiding situations. But, on the other hand, fears are due to on how an individual reacts. For example, if an individual has a phobia to snakes, do you think they're going to jump up in excitement? No. They're going to react in fear, scream their head off, and immediately run for their life as though it's going to end. To Sidman on page 168, but we do not have phobias. Fears are not things, they are names that summarize observations about behavior. When I read this, I think of it as though phobias are set in place in our mind and there is ability to ignore our fears. It is almost as though we are imagining things. Just as an individual avoids certain circumstances, there is an ability to realize these phobias are a myth that have formulated in our heads. With these behaviors, individuals normally ignore their phobias, as Sidman stated, due to dealing with negative situations. As with every human being, once we have had bad experience with something, we do not wish to experience it ever again, so we try with our best ability to avoid the possibility of encountering the situation. Which brings me to Sidman's statement on page 168. The phobia is said to be caused by anxiety, which in turn interfered with uncontrollable trembling, perspiration, heart palpitations, upset stomach, and heavy breathing. What is your point with this statement? Another question I have is, as we are becoming BCBAs, how you would handle a client who has a phobia. Sidman states taking baby steps can help clients steer away from their phobias. The second concept I would like to talk about on page 168 is reaction formation, entails how we react towards how a situation is occurring. If negative events are occurring, of course an individual will react in a negative manner, whether it may be defend themselves or they're being treated harshly. If a positive event is occurring, an individual is more likely to react in a positive manner due to the environment. For example, if an individual is being bullied, they will either A, cry, or B, fight back. Another example is if an individual is celebrating a wedding, they will rejoice in happiness because they are taking part in the celebration. I'm a bit confused with the sexual ordeal. Is it saying we should be celibate in order to make our parents happy? Sidman does make a great statement on page 170. When danger approaches, we avoid danger signals may come from the external environment or from our own incipient actions or speech. We do avoid hard situations because we do not want to encounter any harm on ourselves. If there were to be a situation we are faced with harm, we will react because it is human nature to defend ourselves under any circumstances. The third concept I would like to discuss on page 170 is sublimation, on how we learn from right and wrong. What is your standpoint concerning sublimation? I only ask because on page 170, Sidman states, children learn through disapproval and other kinds of punishment. From my standpoint, I believe the only way a child can learn from right and wrong is through punishments or learning through a consequence of what could occur if they do not listen. If a parent tells a child to stay away from a beehive because they risk the chance of being severely stung, of course, some children will disregard their parent's statement, so in reality, they will have to learn for themselves and hopefully then understand why they should listen when statements such as those are made. Why do you think Sidman continuously brings up sexual tendencies? I only ask because this concept gave me a bit of confusion as well, especially when he says on page 170, under the threat of punishment, sexuality, people are said to be sublime by turning to the arts and science socially approved outlets for their creative energies. Are they saying with different sexualities they're banned from things? The fourth concept I'm going to talk about on page 173 is regression, which entailed human beings doing anything to avoid a situation they do not wish to participate in. I am one to say I play victim of this, of not wanting to complete or participate in any event. But I feel like that's with everybody. If they're not feeling what's going on, of course they're not going to want to participate, even if they're forced. They're going to be sluggish in everything. If it's something that excites them, their body language will show more excitement. If I do not wish to cook or clean my chores, I will throw a fit as though I'm a child in order to delay the completion of the task. As Sidman stated on page 173, a grown-up will sometimes act like a child or a child like an infant. Such regression contact often allows one to avoid punishment, deprivation, or hardship. As I said, as I'm an adult, I try to steer away from doing certain chores, the cleaning, the doing chores, but at the end of the day, with all that whining, I still end up doing it because it's just going to stay there. No one else is going to do that. I see this with young infants. They'll whine like they're a baby still, but then realize what the task that's being asked, they're still going to have to do it at the end of the day. To continue, but of course, I'm a grown adult and I have tendencies of reverting back to child actions. I get myself out of it and I end up completing the task, as I stated before. This is because at the end of the day, as we all know, we need to realize the task needs to be completed or else it will never be completed. I believe with children who continuously regress can be taught if they wish not to participate or complete tasks, the consequences that will occur. If they complete tasks, they can see the positive reinforcement continuously. As Sidman stated on page 173, we can easily demonstrate regression by first teaching an experimental subject several ways to earn food. Then we punish or just stop reinforcing the act that the subject learned most recently. The fifth concept I will discuss on page 180, what is abnormal, talks about how there needs to be a realization that behaviors occur due to a variety of circumstances, such as individual being coerced, but Sidman did say on page 180, clearly many factors can contribute to mental illness in any particular case, consideration of all possibilities. social and individual, internal and external. But when it comes to the understanding of behaviors, they are analyzed in order to have understandings, the root of the occurrence of behaviors. As BCBAs, we will be analyzing the behaviors in order to not only have an understanding, but generalize how we can eliminate or decrease the chances of the behavior occurring again. How would you interpret this concept? From my completion of this chapter, I believe Sidman is trying to tell us there are, of course, different reactions to coercion, as we are all different. Coercions can be done in a negative or positive manner, which will result to how an individual portrays their behaviors. The individual can either display anger, sadness, or fear. 2 questions I have are the following. 1. In terms of coercion, do you believe mental illness takes part in how one reacts? And 2, what is your overall standpoint with coercion? Do you believe it is harmful or can it be beneficial in circumstances? Thank you for listening, and I can't wait to hear back from everybody.